Hi, a very good morning to all of you, and a warm welcome to all our viewers who have joined us on the show. Welcome to the YouTube channel Scepter. I'm your host, Dr. Mani Iyer. Before I start, I request every one of you to please subscribe to this channel, like this video podcast, and share the same to all your friends and relatives. This will go in a long way in supporting us and to help us produce many more such videos and to bring them to you. Thank you so much. So let's begin. We have all heard stories about haunted houses, midnight screams, and people suddenly speaking in strange voices. In our society, the immediate reaction is often to blame bhoot-pret, black magic, or a curse. But what happens when we look at these chilling events through the eyes of science? Next up, we are tackling a massive cultural taboo, black magic or mental illness, the truth about demonic possession, a clinical view on exorcisms and tantric rituals. We are stepping right into the middle of the battle between superstition and science. We are going to unpack how a human mind can mimic demonic behavior, why families rushes to a tantric instead of a hospital, and what is actually happening inside a person's brain when they claim to be possessed by an evil spirit. So, to unpack all of this, I'm joined by Miss Ayesha Khaleel. Hi, Ms. Ayesha ji. Please
Hi, Dr.
welcome to
May.
the show. And and to unpack all of this and to this, I welcome Ayesha ji, who is a known on our platform, and he has come several times on our platform. So she needs no introduction. So I would like to hand it over to Ayesha ji. Ayesha ji, please take over the controls.
Thank you so much, Dr. Maniji. It's really a great pleasure to be here every time. I'm back with another interesting topic. So we'll be discussing about uh, black magic and mental illnesses and the truth about demonic possession. So this is a topic that sits right at the heart of our society. Yet almost no one wants to talk about it openly, right? So, for generations, across almost every neighborhood, village, city, and town, we have grown up surrounded by stories of the supernatural.
Yeah.
Supernatural, as in the bhoot, pret, ghosts, etc. We hear whispers about haunted houses, sudden midnight screams, or someone in the locality who allegedly turned violent because a jealous neighbor did jadoo tona or black magic on their family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when these frightening events happen in a household, the immediate instinctual reaction of the family and community isn't to pick up the phone call and call a hospital, a neurologist, or a psychiatrist. The immediate reaction is sheer panic, and families rush to religious shrines, seek out tantrics, or arrange painful traumatic exorcisms to drive the so called evil spirit away.
Mhm.
So, for example, in my practice, I have had clients who came to me. Um, they suspected they have been a victim of black magic. So one of that client was educated enough, but her family was forcing her to seek out a tantric.
Mhm.
But she was adamant to seek professional help first. So, yeah, these cases are very common in our country.
Okay.
So, to proceed ahead, when we look at this through a psychological lens, we are looking at a deeply complex human struggle between fear, cultural conditioning, and modern science. To the average family, when a loved one starts acting completely out of character, it is an absolute nightmare for the loved ones. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night to find a family member, someone who has always been quiet, gentle, cheerful, and soft spoken. So they are suddenly thrashing around on the floor, tearing down their own clothes, cursing in harsh language, unfamiliar tones, or staring blankly into empty corners of the room.
Yeah.
Because our society simply does not educate people on how the human brain functions when it breaks down under severe stress or illness. The human mind fills in the terrifying blanks with what it already knows: superstition, curses, ghosts, and dark magic, which is also known as Kala Jadoo in our country. So, now why do families rush to a tantric or a faith healer instead of a medical hospital? So, this question, as a practicing psychologist, I see two massive social psychological drivers behind this. One is cultural familiarity, and the second one is the shield of stigma. So, stigma, as in the stigma surrounded by the weird, unnatural behavior. So, if they take them to a psychologist or psychiatrist, so the family members are somehow worried that their loved one may be called as a mad person, or they'll be labeled as a mad person. So, they are being taken to a psychiatrist, but that is far from the truth, right? Yeah, so let's examine cultural familiarity first. In our society, belief in dark energies, bad omens, the evil eye, I mean, the buri nazar, what we call, and spiritual curses is passed down from generation to generation. From early childhood, we hear stories where spiritual forces uh, or the ghosts are blamed for sudden misfortune, illnesses, or behavioral change. So, when something unexplainable and terrifying happens inside a home, turning to a spiritual healer feels natural, accessible, and familiar because of the cultural familiarity, right? So, it fits neatly into the cultural worldview that people have held for centuries, especially in our country. Second, and perhaps most importantly, a supernatural diagnosis acts as the shield of stigma. It actually protects the family from social shame, as I discussed, that they'll be labeled as a mad person because just because they are taking them to the psychiatrist or a psychologist, right? In many parts of society, mental illness still carries a heavy, cruel social stigma. If a family openly admits that the son or daughter is suffering from a severe psychiatric disorder like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or severe psychosis, they immediately worry about this what society will say. They and most importantly, they panic about marriage prospects. No one will marry their daughter or son if they come to know that they're dealing with this mental illness. So what happens is the social isolation, community gossip, and permanent judgment. These are all the things that our society is worried about. However, saying someone did black magic on our house or an evil spirit from the outside has taken over them completely changes the social narrative. Suddenly, the sick individual isn't mentally ill or insane. They are an innocent victim of an external malicious dark force or the dark energy or the black magic. It removes personal responsibility, guilt, and social shame. from both the patient and the family. So it is was vastly easier for a family to tell their neighbors and relatives, we are taking them to a holy place to perform a ritual and clear the curse, rather than saying we are admitting them to a psychiatric ward of a medical hospital. That sounds like a nightmare to lots of Indian families. So this creates a massive tragic barrier to real medical care, right? And the family buys into the myth of the evil spirit because it feels emotionally safer and less shameful than accepting a serious brain disorder or a psychiatric disorder. So, but while this belief protects the family's social standing, it leaves the sick individual trapped in a state of horrific psychological suffering, denied the very medical treatment that could actually save their life. Because when the human mind is pushed to its absolute breaking point, it doesn't just fracture. It creates a terrifying theater that looks exactly like a supernatural curse.
Yeah, you mentioned the mind creating a theater. To an everyday observer, seeing someone thrash around speaking in a completely different voice and reacting violently to holy water looks 100% like real possession. Possession. As a psychologist, how do you explain those exact terrifying physical behaviors without using the word ghost?
Yeah. So that is the central question, isn't it?
Hmm.
And when a family witnesses those extreme physical behaviors with their own eyes, it feels almost impossible to believe that it's just in the mind. It feels very real that the person has really been possessed by some entity. But when we open up a medical textbook and examine clinical neuroscience, every single one of these seemingly supernatural behaviors maps directly onto well documented psychiatric, psychological, and neurological conditions. So, let me break down these exact behaviors for you step by step in simple, understandable terms. So, we'll examine the types of mental illnesses or disorders that might show up in these victims, which the society fails to understand. So, the first one is dissociative identity disorder, which in the short form we call it as DID, and dissociative trance disorder. All right, so we'll talk about this. So, what does dissociation mean in simple language? Dissociation means a deep mental disconnection. So, it's the human brain's ultimate emergency defense mechanism against severe trauma, overwhelming abuse, or unbearable psychological stress. When a person experiences emotional pain or terror that their mind simply cannot process, their brain literally disconnects from reality to shield itself. So, that is why we can see those mm, unnatural behaviors in the victim. So, in severe cases, the brain fractures and creates an alternate identity, a completely different persona from what they are. When the individual slips into a trance like state, this alternate identity takes full control of the body. Their posture shifts, their facial expressions transform, and they adopt an entirely different voice, often deep, very loud, aggressive, or menacing. So, to an untrained observer, it looks 100% like a dark foreign entity has entered the body. But in reality, it is a deeply traumatized human brain acting out a suppressed hidden part of itself that it could never safely express in daily life. So, what they have been doing is this, they have been suppressing the severe trauma for such a long time That it so that the mind dissociates to the point that the mind dissociates and creates a complete different reality or the persona to shield itself from the trauma they have been suppressing, right? So this was about the dissociation when a person adopts a complete different persona, which is different from them or from their original personality, which can seem like a possession for the family members or anyone. So, secondly, we'll take a look at schizophrenia. So, that's a very talked about uh, mental illness, uh, schizophrenia, and psychosis. So, when a person suffers from severe psychosis, the brain's ability to process reality breaks down completely. They experience what clinicians call auditory and visual hallucinations. So, I'll explain what this means. So, in plain terms, the chemical balance in their brain, specifically involving neurotransmitters like dopamine, goes entirely haywire or it disrupts. The brain begins generating physical sensory experiences that have no external cause. For example, they may see some things which are not visible to any other person around. So, when I was training at Nimhans, I had a very young patient who told me that there are lots of dark, shadow like figures in the same room, the same OPD, which were not visible to any of the doctors or a psychologist. It was only visible to her. And she also mentioned that they were speaking to her or they were fighting amongst each other. So, so these are the experiences. These are called as hallucinations, right? So a person in a psychotic episode might hear a loud, booming, terrifying voice inside their head telling them, I'm a demon. I have taken over your soul. These are called auditory hallucinations. Auditory as in where you can hear the voices, not just visual. So to the patient, that voice is a real, crisp, and distinct, as my voice is to you right now. Like you are hearing my voice right now, right? So it's exactly the same when they hear this auditory like hallucinations inside their head. They aren't faking it at all. Their brain is actively producing that auditory reality. Alongside hallucinations, they experience command delusions. So I'll explain what this is. So the delusions are like fixed, terrifying beliefs that dark spirits are attacking them or controlling their limbs or attempting to destroy them from the inside. Or they might also believe that other people can hear their thoughts inside their head, or other people are controlling them via some like technologically advanced chip placed inside their hand or the body, right? So these are called delusions. It's a fixed belief which is not true, but it seems true for them. Uh, Not because they are faking it, but because their mind is generating a completely different reality out there. So now, why does a person in the psychotic state react with such extreme violence when touched with holy water, sacred ash, or religious symbols like the plus sign in Christianity and etc. Like whatever. This comes down to the psychological power of belief, expectation, and terror. If a person has been raised in an environment where they were taught that holy water burns evil spirits, and the psychotic, panic stricken brain is screaming, you are possessed. You are possessed now. So, the sheer psychological terror when holy water touches their skin triggers a massive, overwhelming flight or fight response because of the conditioning, since childhood, the religious conditioning. Their rate spikes dangerously, their adrenaline drops, the adrenaline surges, their muscles contract violently, and they thrash around in total agony. See, it's just a chemical like a reaction happening inside the brain and the body. But uh, it's not because the holy water is spiritually burning them, but because the brain is undergoing a state of pure, unadulterated terror. Third, we have a fascinating neurological and psychiatric condition called catatonia. It's called as catatonic schizophrenia also. In a catatonic state, the brain's control over motor movements breaks down completely. A person might freeze in strange, rigid postures for hours without moving a single muscle, or they might suddenly explode into wild, uncontrollable physical thrashing with what appears to be superhuman strength. So when adrenaline floods a panicked catatonic body, a small frail individual can suddenly resist or overpower three or four full grown adults. So it looks like supernatural power, but in medical reality, it is simply a massive fear driven adrenaline surge firing through the nervous system, right? So, uh, fourthly, we see cases of mass hysteria, known clinical as mass sociogenic illness. So, this occurs when extreme fear, panic, and shared belief systems, like, note down the point, it's shared belief systems among the society, spread rapidly through a tight knit group, such as a village or a school or a religious gathering. If one emotionally vulnerable individual enters a hysterical trance state, uh, the sheer psychological anxiety spreads through the crowd like wildfire. Within minutes, three or four other people might start screaming, thrashing, and speaking in strange voices too. So it isn't an evil spirit hopping from body to body. It is psychological contagion powered by collective fear, high suggestibility, and cultural belief. This brings us directly into the next section, the dangerous business of exorcisms. When a family fully believes that an evil spirit is occupying their loved one, they call upon an exorcist or a tantric or a guru or a babaji, whatever you might call them, or a faith healer. And this is precisely where a manageable medical crisis spirals into a horrific human tragedy. In many unregulated environments, faith healers and tantrics resort to cruel, violent methods to force the spirit out. They subject the sick person to extreme sleep deprivation, deny them food and water, lock them in dark rooms, beat them with sticks, press burning camphor against their skin, or chain them up to walls for days on end. Yeah, these are the real documented like cases. These are even shown in some documentaries on YouTube where people are undergoing such religious treatments. So now often people often ask if these rituals are bad, why does the possessed person sometimes go completely quiet or act cured right after a violent exorcism? So this is an important question. It is not because the demon was driven away. In psychology, we explain this through trauma-induced shock and learned helplessness. When a human being who is already suffering from a fragile, broken mind is subjected to extreme physical pain, suffocation, and terror and public humiliation, their nervous system eventually hits a breaking point. The brain enters a severe shutdown state called learned helplessness. They completely cease screaming, thrashing, and fighting back simply because their mind and body have surrendered out of sheer physical exhaustion, shock, and terror. The family looks at them and sighs with relief, thinking, look, the ritual worked and the spirit has left. But in reality, the sick individual hasn't been cured at all. They have been traumatized even further, leaving their underlying brain disorder to fester in secret. And the another thing which might happen is like if the victim also believes in the supernatural energies or these forces or tantrics, they undergo something called confirmation bias, where they already have their in the keep there in the mind that they'll be cured by these forces. So when the tantric does the rituals and their mind feels like they have come out of the state or the evil spirit has been like removed from inside the body. So they already confirm their own existing beliefs that were already inside, like culturally ingrained inside them. And that is the real tragedy because treating a medical emergency with chains and rituals doesn't cure the spirit. It systematically destroys the patient.
Oh God, it's a real tragedy when people choose superstition over medical science. For
Right.
our
Yeah.
listeners tuning in who live in a society where beliefs in black magic is so common, how can a regular person differentiate between someone who is going through a genuine medical, clinical mental crisis vis-a-vis someone who is just seeking attention or being manipulated?
Yes, Maniji, I agree with you. This is like really shocking and traumatic what the victims undergo. So, the question you asked is perhaps the most crucial part of our entire discussion today. Because being able to recognize the true warning signs can literally save a human life and prevent years of unnecessary suffering. So, when a family member, friend, or neighbor begins demonstrating bizarre, erratic, or terrifying behaviors, we must learn to look past the dramatic surface and carefully observe the underlying clinical patterns. Right. So I'll tell you about the clinical patterns, what to observe and notice in them. Here are the clear, unmistakable medical markers that indicate a person is experiencing a real, genuine clinical mental health crisis rather than acting, seeking attention, or manipulating those around them. So the first one is severe collapse or basic daily functioning and self-care, right? So, it disturbs their daily functioning and self-care, like such as brushing their teeth or even waking up from bed. So, when an individual is experiencing a true psychiatric crisis, such as severe schizophrenia, clinical psychosis, or a major manic episode, their ability to perform basic daily tasks completely collapses. They stop showering, neglect basic personal hygiene, refuse to brush their hair or teeth, refuse food for days, or go without sleep for extended periods. Someone who is consciously pretending, seeking attention, or acting out a role will almost never neglect their fundamental biological needs to such a dangerous, severe extent over weeks or months. So, yeah, whenever we go through stress, we might delay some things we might sleep more or sleep less. But In clinical diagnosis, this happens to such an extent where the person loses their complete functionality, daily functionality, such as like even like taking care of their own body needs. So the second one is involuntary physical and cognitive deterioration. Pay close attention to their physical health, eyes, speech, and cognitive patterns. In a real medical crisis, you will observe unmistakable physical signs, that is, drastic unexplained weight loss, sunken eyes with dark circles from severe insomnia, and dilated pupils as if the pupils have enlarged, and uncoordinated physical movements. Furthermore, their speech pattern changes in ways that cannot be faked. They demonstrate what we call loose associations or disorganized speech. So, when I'm speaking to you, the speech is organized. You are understanding what I'm saying, right? So,
Mhm.
but when people get diagnosed with schizophrenia or other psychotic illnesses, their speech becomes very disorganized, like they jump from one topic to another without any context at all. So, this is one of the markers. Their sentences lose logical connection. They jump from one bizarre, unfinished thought to another, creating something called a word salad or khichdi, where words spill out without any coherent meaning or logic, right? So the third one is unwavering consistency across all settings. A real psychiatric condition or brain anomaly does not have a convenient on and off switch. If a person is genuinely stuck in a psychotic episode, a manic state, or a severe dissociative trance, their symptoms remain completely consistent whether they are alone in a room surrounded by family or standing in front of total strangers. If an individual only displays possession or dramatic thrashing when an audience is present but behaves completely normally, eats comfortably, and talks casually the moment they think no one is watching them, that points strongly toward conscious drama, manipulation, or a desperate unconscious cry for attention. So, this is the difference we need to make. If a person is really diagnosed by a clinical condition, they display consistent behavior in all the environments or the settings. Like they talk the same erratic behavior. But if a person is doing that to seek attention, uh, they may behave completely normal when no one is watching or when they are alone inside the room. So, a hidden history of deep psychological trauma. So, we'll examine this. If you carefully investigate the background of an individual who suddenly experiences possession or trance like states, you will almost always uncover a history of deep, unaddressed, and severe psychological trauma. It could be years of hidden domestic abuse, severe emotional neglect, extreme academic or financial pressure, or being forced into life circumstances against their will. In these cases, the possession becomes the mind's only unconscious escape hatch. So, their mind is so terribly exhausted from the reality. So, it decides to dissociate or disconnect from the reality, which looks like possession. That's a way to express unbearable pain, anger, or distress without taking personal blame for it in a rigid society. So, how do we move forward as a compassionate, educated society? We do not need to insult or mock people's cultural or spiritual heritage, but we must draw a firm line when human health and safety are at risk. Spiritual beliefs must never replace evidence based medical science. And if a family wishes to offer a quiet prayer or speak spiritual comfort for a sick relative, That is their personal right. We cannot like take their right away from them. But that prayer must happen alongside proper medical care and psychiatric care, and never instead of it. Never only the the rituals, and only I mean never the medical case, and only focusing on the rituals that are born by uh, the extreme societal pressures, right? If someone you know or love begins showing sudden, drastic, or violent changes in behavior, the very first stop must always be a medical hospital to consult a qualified doctor, a neurologist, or a psychiatrist. We must rule out brain tumors, viral brain infections, epilepsy, chemical imbalances, and severe psychiatric disorders before even thinking about spiritual causes. This is the difference. I'm not saying you disregard or discard all the religious beliefs. That's not possible. But if it's done alongside with the proper medical care, then that would be more helpful for the patient. We must dismantle the wall of shame and stigma surrounding mental health. Suffering from a brain mental illness is no different from suffering from diabetes, heart disease, or a broken bone. The brain is a physical organ in the body, and just like any other organ, it can experience illness and require professional medical treatment to heal. Just because it is not visible from the outside, like a broken bone is visible. So what the family does is they take them to a doctor because it's visible. But mental illness is not visible. It's just happening inside the mind, inside the brain because of the chemical imbalances or other factors, right? So understanding this truth is our shared responsibility. We must learn to replace fear with clinical empathy, ignorance with education, and dangerous superstition with timely, life saving medical care. And with this, I conclude my discussion on this interesting topic of black magic or mental illness. And to everyone listening out there, stay observant, lead with compassion, look beyond dramatic theater of fear. And remember, the human brain is vastly complex, but with science, understanding, and timely medical care, even the darkest mental storms can find healing. So, yes, Dr. Mani.
Yeah, really thank you very much for,
Mhm,
you know, um, clearing out some of the, major misconceptions which is
mhm,
there regarding this topic.
mhm,
Because at some stage or the other, even educated people are also start believing in this.
mhm.
Maybe in some form or the other, maybe in terms of religious following, in terms of following a Guruji, and to the extent of getting into some of these exorcisms and tantric rituals. So
Right.
it is even now it is very difficult to differentiate between, what is, you know, uh,
Mm,
schizophrenic behavior and vis-a-vis, or any mental disease for that matter, vis-a-vis black magic, exorcism,
mm,
and other things, tantric rituals.
mhm,
So one is not at all sure. I
mm,
mean, both is happening even now,
mm,
and all of these are happening. So you have come out with clear, uh, you know, mm, clear, ideas, and clear. You have cleared out some all the misconceptions and given an explanation which is there in science, especially psychological science, and so you have I mean, what do you call? You have cleared the misconceptions and disposed of some of those clear misconceptions, and It is for our viewers to take what is, you have made it clear, and sometimes we won't even know where is the Lakshman Rekha.
Mm.
For that matter. So, where is the exact,
Right.
which is black magic, which is exorcism, which
Mhm.
is mental mental sort of illness. So it's very difficult, but you have cleared it in a very, very, positive and way, and you said what to do and what not to do very clearly. It's for our viewers to take this and, take this forward and not believe in many of these things because it results in extreme harm to the victim of these practices and rituals. So, without any relief from the actual disease, which is there under the I do not know how to say that, but under
Mhm.
the hood maybe. Okay, so which is there
Okay.
inside their brain. So that has to be treated, and so please, approach a proper psychiatrist or a psychologist who can guide you and counsel you on all these things, and don't fall to such kind of misconceptions, and don't become a prey for all this, and fall into the complete it's like falling into a well, and then there is no way out. So if you so it's better you approach scientifically, scientifically, and approach it through a proper medical. There are several medical units, and this is what we are fighting in this channel. Because this channel is exclusively dedicated for psychology, so we are not doing anything else here. So we give, that is why how much importance we are giving to mental health. We're trying to give the maximum, like if you're going to physical health, you have multi-speciality, right? For every
Right.
specialty you have something or the other. Brain you have neurology, eye you have ophthalmology, like that ENT, nose, mouth, everything. So you have several
Mm.
specialties. Then cardiac, liver you have hepatics, and then stomach you have gastro. Then you have orthopedic for the legs and whatnot. So there are so many specialties just to take care of the physical condition. But mental conditioning, what about it? Huh? What about
Right.
brain? Huh?
That's
Uh,
very unfortunate,
huh?
actually.
All right, we are just
Yeah.
so you don't
Mm.
have at all.
Mhm.
Basically, it's only end state or sanatoriums and stuff like that, or you don't even know what is happening inside, and and this. So it's
Mm.
our thing, our fight, and not only our fight, our this one is in this channel is to overcome all of these, and give proper care to the brain, and so that it can properly heal, and you can come out positively out of it and lead a very healthy and successful life. That is what we want all of our viewers to be. And so, thank you very much, Ayesha ji, for contributing so much.
You're most welcome, Dr. Maniji. I'm
Yeah,
really happy to contribute and discuss about the stigma and like what is real and what is not, and like about the psychological concepts. And really, I'm very grateful that you provided me this opportunity to speak
yeah.
here in this podcast.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much, Ayesha ji. So, we
Okay.
look forward to
Hmm.
seeing you soon on another topic, some other
Sure.
time, very soon on the show. Okay. So, with that, we'd like to thank you very much. Uh, you know, um, Sayonara to you. Okay. And
Yeah.
goodbye. Take care of yourself, and yeah, we'll see you soon. Thank
Yeah.
you. Have a
Goodbye.
great
Goodbye,
day.
Manoj.
Have
You
a
too.
great
Bye bye.
afternoon and
Yeah.
evening, and have a great day. And yeah, see you soon.
You
Bye.
too. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Aisha ji.
Yeah.